ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed viewers at home, welcome you to another edition of Democracy and the Rule of Law, a show where we delve deep into the critical issues of law, politics, and governance. In today's episode, we'll be looking at two critical issues. Of course, first of all, we'll look at the issue of the recent appointment of the new Inec chairman, Professor Ampitan, who was recently appointed by the president after the expiration of the tenure of the outgone Inec chairman, Professor Yakubu Mahmood. Of course, his appointment has been with a lot of controversy. Some have said that the president ought not even to appoint the Inec chairman, that he would have delegated that appointment to other statutory bodies. Some have argued that the close associate of the president, and some are optimistic that the professor would deliver the needed change and deliver a credible election come 2027. So we'll be looking at the issues surrounding his appointment and the changes that is expected from this recent appointment. And also we'll also be looking at the issue surrounding the tinted permit. Of course, there has been an ongoing battle. Some lawyers have argued that that the law prohibiting tinted vehicles infringes on constitutional infringement of people's rights to own property and freedom from harassment. So we'll be looking at this issue on this show this evening. We have our guests who are already seated in the studio to help us make sense of these two issues. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll introduce our guests. Stay tuned, we'll be back shortly. Joining us here on your favorite program, Democracy and the Rule of Law. With me on the show this evening is Barrister Obiora Ume, a respected legal practitioner, practicing here in Lagos. Barrister Obiora Ume, welcome you to the show this evening.
Thank you very much, and a very good evening to our esteemed viewers out there.
And also with me is Barrister Deji Adeliye. Barrister Deji, welcome you to the show this evening.
It's a pleasure to be on the program once again.
All right. So without wasting much time, we'll just dive into the meat and of today's show. So of course, there has been a misreaction concerning the appointment of the new INEC boss. Yeah. Some people have raised eyebrows, while some people are excited about his appointment. He's a professor and a consummate professor of evidence, company, and secretarial law in the university. I think he's a vice chancellor of one of the universities. So what is your opinion? Because some people have raised, in fact, the constitutionality of the president even appointed. Some have said he's a close associate of the president. Some have said he even he was one of the councils that represented the president at the last
general election.
Yes, general election.
The petition that
yes.
For the election.
So what is your opinion?
Well, to start with, one thing that is commendable about the appointment of Professor Joas Amopiton is the fact that it was not delayed. I recall that in years and years, after the expiration of the office of the then INEC chairman, it took time before a replacement was made. But the president has swiftly, appointed someone who, of course, Nigerians have accepted with mixed reactions. Some have said, yes, that it is a very good thing that has happened, and that the man has a clean record and will perform, that there is still a bright light at the end of the tunnel. Now let's look at it analytically and look at the issues one after the other. The man is taking over at a time when INEC has very low reputation. It has suffered untold, reputational damage, and that has necessarily led to what we presently have, which is voter apathy. Nigerians do not believe anymore in the system we run here, because they believe that We are not passing democracy truly and strictly so called. Nigerians believe that going out to vote is just a waste of time because at the end of the day, some cabals will manipulate the system. Now, the man is welcome on board, but the question now is this. Is he prepared for the normal challenges facing him as he takes over the ship of this nation as the Inec chairman? And what are those challenges? Before now, we have consistently advocated that there must be immediate and urgent constitutional amendments. And the constitutional amendments are to ensure that we have institutional provisions in the Constitution that are in tandem with the tenets and principles of democracy and rule of law. We cannot operate democracy that is not in tandem with what is obtainable in other countries of the world. For example, the European Union Monitoring Committee, the African Union Monitoring Committee, and even ECOWAS Monitoring Committee that have monitored elections in Nigeria in the past, as well as international observers, have come up to say that the practice of a president of Nigeria appointing the Inec chairman in an election that the same president will contest is apparently against the clear principles of democracy. And why is that so? It is obvious that the appointee will have and show appreciation and loyalty to whoever appointed him. Meaning that ever before the contest, the president already has an advantage over others because he appointed the Inec chairman and the rest of the electoral commissioners. But then, who do we blame for this? This constitutional issue. It does not actually lie on the doorstep of the president to say so. It has to do with serious lacuna in our constitution. Of course, Nigerians have said over time that the constitution is not the constitution made by Nigerians for Nigerians. It was a military document handed over to Nigerians and forced down the throat of Nigerians to accept as a constitution. So the first thing is that as there is ongoing amendment of the constitution or replacements of the constitution, whichever we may see at the end of the day, there is still to amend the constitution to remove the power of appointment of the Inec chairman from the president. Of course, that has to do with Section 154 of the constitution. Let that power be given to a neutral body, perhaps the body, the NBA or NJC or any other body, and whoever wants to aspire to be the chairman of INEC should apply. That body will scrutinize them and eventually come up with someone who will not be present for ratification. Yeah, not before the president.
Yeah, but people argue that President Jonathan appointed the INEC chairman, and yet he was still defeated, in the general election, in spite of the fact that he was the one that appointed the INEC chairman.
Now, the issue of President Jonathan conducting election, that is election being conducted when he was the commander-in-chief.
Yes.
And he losing in that election.
He appointed the chairman.
That narrative, yes, is a narrative that happened here before us. But then you discover that there are individual differences in human beings. President Jonathan said that his victory, his ambition, does not deserve the blood of any Nigerian. He believed that the processes were not transparent. He believed that there were manipulations, but he said he was not ready to ask anybody to go out to protest or do anything that will lead to loss of lives and properties. Particularly when at the tail end and before that election, there were indications that if he wins, Nigeria may be made ungovernable.
Yeah, but
and with those threats, he was ready not to go outside the confines of the rule of law and the fairness to pursue an agenda.
Yeah, but the issue, I think the argument of those that is of the opinion that it's not that the issue is not actually the appointer of the Inec chairman, that the Inec, the law governing Inec have said that they have to be independent, irrespective. You have to follow the law. Like, and which was what was done during Jonathan's era. You do not have the fact that the president has appointed you does not mean that you need to break the law in order to please the president.
In fact, as far as Jonathan is concerned, he even went ahead to put in place measures to ensure that INEC, performed its duties to deploy technology. So the present chairman has a lot of duties. So apart from the issue of appointment, there are so many other areas that he needs to tackle to ensure that they restore the confidence of Nigerians in the electoral process. And one of them, of course, which has to do with constitutional amendment, is to unbundle INEC. INEC as a body is overburdened with a lot of responsibilities. It is the agency that registers political parties. It's the agency that organizes elections, both off-season election and general elections. It's also the body that takes and handles electoral malpractices, violence, both during and post-election violence. And also the body that does collation results, transmission, and all those things. This is too much for one body if we want to get it right. The proper thing to do is to unbundle it. Let there be a separate body that handles registration and management of the affairs and supervision of political parties. Let there also be a different body that conducts election. And one area this man must be very vigilant about is the issue of election collection election result collection management, because that is when Nigerians got pissed off. When during the last election they were said to be glitches, and instead of electronic transmission that would have made it very apparent, very transparent for everybody to see, they now had to claim the glitches, and there were manual collections, and Nigerians believe that water passed under the bridge.
All right. But let's get your opinion on this. Because obviously we saw before the appointment there were the Council of States. It wasn't just president. The president in conjunction with the Council of States, former head of states. That's the.
So he presented to the Council of States.
Exactly, and there was no objection. There has to be an approval. So obviously the process doesn't lie just with him. Because there are still other,
but you know that is wrong. The international community, the European Union, the African Union, have said that practice is undemocratic.
So, what would you?
Yes, thank you very much. I think my major concern, first of all, it is true that the name was passed through the Council of State. But if you look at the composition of that council for that event, you will discover that almost all the fathers of the nation were not at that meeting. Some of our former head of states and presidents were not at that meeting. And the only two presidents that was even present were present only online, virtually. They actually attended virtually. So that's to me, it's a big minus. It's a big minus.
It's a big minus to them or to who?
To the nation.
Are they not
because they have had opportunity. We don't know the reason why they are not there. But the fact that they were not present, detracts from the legitimacy of that decision. The decision as to the new INEC chairman.
Yeah, but if they were not to be there, shouldn't they have informed the nation? Because they owe the nation a duty to be there.
So we wouldn't know whether they were not invited. What if they were not invited?
Then they would have told us. They would have told.
Who would have told you? Who would have told you?
The head of state that were absent. It was a.
Who would have told you?
There is a press statement that they are not in support.
No, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. So it's most outside protocol.
So I agree that they accepted.
You cannot assume. You can what I'm saying. You cannot assume. You cannot assume anything. The fact that they were not there and no proper explanation was given by the government themselves, it detracts from the legitimacy of that choice. That's on one part. Secondly, of course, you agree with me that it's unfortunate that the appointment of the INEC chairman has been riddled with so many controversies. Controversies as to the level of his relationship and connection to the president. It is true that the president has a discretion to appoint the INEC chairman, which, as my brother has said earlier on, is something that we still need to get over in this country. Particularly when you look at the recommendations of the Ways report that have advised and recommended that the selection process should be done publicly. Okay, and that the Chief Justice of the Federation should be in charge of the recruitment and the appointment of an electoral chairman for INEC, so as to have this element of independence of the chairman from the executive, undue control and connection to the executive.
The Chief Justice,
the Chief Justice of Nigeria,
the Chief Justice of Nigeria president berated that they have helped in derailing the constitutional advancement of the nation. That's the Chief Justice.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, yes. And that in the states, the Chief Judge, yes, should be the one that should modulate the process for the appointment of the chairman at the state level. But having said that, it's unfortunate that the appointment of our learned Sikh is coming up with so much controversy, which I think should be investigated, if you ask me, because we are at a very critical critical stage in our history, in our electoral history. All right, there are so many controversies concerning the CV that was presented by the federal government themselves. Okay, if you look at that CV, there were discrepancies as to the period between which he was born and when he went to Polytechnic, what course he did do at the Polytechnic. All right, no indications were given. And then the schools that he went to, the primary school, the secondary school, how many years did he spend there? It was not disclosed. And then, if you also look a little bit at that CV, you will discover that he became an HOD, head of department, even without a PhD. And one wonders if that is possible, given the years that he gave in that CV. One wonders whether that is possible in a federal university like University of Jos. I think there are some explanations that needed to be done in respect of some of those entries on his CV. You know, which a lot of people have been arguing. There are a lot of controversies as to whether or not he was properly appointed as the dean at the time he was appointed, and how long it took him from being a lecturer to become a dean in that same department. These are some of the issues that had come up. And then, of course, like I said earlier on, the question of his relationship with the president needs to be clarified. Some people, we don't know the extent of the truth of it. Some people have said that he is a close friend of the president. Some people have said he has been one of the legal advisors or counselor of the president. Some people have said that he was actually a member and a team leader, or one of the team leaders in the 2023 election petition cases against the president. And of course, you know, there are so many cases against the president.
Does it not require confirmation from the House of the Senate? The INEC chairman. Does it not require confirmation?
But again, that's the top point I was coming to. The statement that was made by the National Assembly, that their function is not to screen, that is just to appoint.
Just what?
To appoint, but to approve. Sorry.
To confirm.
Or confirm. That their function is to confirm and not to screen. No. If you don't screen, how do you confirm? What do you confirm?
I think it depends.
If there is no screening,
I think it depends on how you are. If the constitution have said confirm, that means they could reject they could oppose the confirmation.
Yes, that's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making, that if you are going to confirm somebody, it presupposes that you have to do oversight function on the appointment.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, so confirmation. Yeah, that it can be withdrawn. Exactly. I've seen it happen in the case of ministers. But for the Senate to come out and tell us that their function is not to screen, but just to confirm, I wonder if they have not abdicated their responsibility to screen this particular candidate. For Nigeria, because we are at a very dangerous age. The issue of character of a new Inec chairman is very, very important to the sanity of the elections is going to be conducting, and to the trust level. We have had 4 previous national chairman of Inec who have trust deficit, and that have affected the perception, the public perception of the elections that these chairmen conducted over the years. And that's one of the reasons why we are having apathy in our election. So we don't want some of these teething problems that will be coming up as to the credibility or the character of a new Inec chairman, for God's sake. Government should look at, should be properly investigated. Some of those issues that have been raised should be investigated, and let's be sure that this man is clean, so that the public can have confidence in the election process. So that's just my own view.
Yes, I have heard the contributions of my very good friends who as well as concerns about the qualifications and the of the newly appointed chairman. Yes, those things are nothing, but I think that over and above that, we should be thinking on how to ensure that the democracy in Nigeria does not collapse, does not die. Because you and I know that an individual, by adding you and me, the Inec chairman, alone cannot, strictly speaking, manipulate the electoral process. He needs to do that with other persons. But then the question is, are there no measures that can be put in place that even where people want to manipulate the process, they will find it difficult, if not impossible, to do so? If we look at the world, it's a global village. And that is why people from other climes are telling Nigeria as a nation that our brand of democracy is not right. Having in place things that make it easy for electoral processes to be manipulated, to have elections that are not free and fair. In fact, after the last general election, the international observers made negative recommendations about the election that was conducted. But then, Nigeria as a nation rose up to criticize them and so on, that they were biased. But these are people that do not have any special interest other than ensuring that we have a brand of democracy that is truly democratic, that the principles of rule of law and order are in place, and that there are no institutionalized practices that give advantage to one party or an individual over another. So I think over and above what my brother and friend has said, we need to look at other areas. One of them is this: the issue of people that want to lead this nation in the office of the president, vice president, governors, and others. Our constitution says that if one has a school certificate or its equivalent, is qualified to lead Nigeria. But let's look at the other side of the coin. While looking for someone to head Inec, they've always looked for a professor. Even returning officers, and they look for professors, people who are well read. Why will Nigeria now still be demanding for someone who has two certificates, instead of asking for people who want to become presidents, governors, and members of the National Assembly to have a minimum of university degree, verifiable from the universities where they claim to have graduated from. You can hardly see any other nation where a person who leads that nation has just to present school, secondary school certificate. There's need to amend that constitution in that area. Again, we also operate a system where once a president gets elected, he takes the nation for a 4-year term and then hopes to get re-elected. And that has been a drawback on our system. I believe that it's better that our constitution be amended to make it 5-year single term for any president that wants to rule this nation. There's also need to show Nigerians that there's equally fairness, equality of every Nigerian that aspires to rule this nation either as president or in whatever capacity. And what does that translate to? That let there be rotational presidency. Nigeria has 6 geopolitical zones. And when one geopolitical zone produces a president, after one single term, let another geopolitical zone produce another president until it has gone round. Because we belong to one nation.
Yeah, but it is
and there must 6 geopolitical zones. 6 geopolitical zones. And it shouldn't be, it is either a northerner or a southerner. That is not fair. That is neglecting the other participants, the other members of the Nigerian community.
I mean, there should be inclusiveness.
Exactly. Because if we say we are one, and I believe we are one,
yeah, but
then everybody should be given opportunity.
Yeah, but what is important now, at first, is to have the electoral system that
of course that is
when you rotate it and you do not have a credible electoral process, you mean that the wrong people will always get into office.
Now that a part of the that process is, by the time you make it mandatory, that Inec will make it a condition that in the electoral act and of course the constitution that there should be rotational presidency. Now, those that feel marginalized, those that feel they don't have a stake in the entity called Nigeria, will now have a sense of belonging. And over and above that, we also need to ensure that technology that is deployed in the electoral process is properly deployed to ensure that there are no glitches, there's transparency in our elections. Of course, very soon, precisely next month, the new Inec chairman will be confronted with the acid test of gubernatorial election in Anambra State. And it will be a disaster if that election does not go far apart in terms of credibility, transparency, fairness, compared with previous elections. It is easy for credible election to be conducted in this nation if we put everything right, and this is the time to do it. Last time in this program, I reminded Nigerians that Nigerian Bar Association as a body conducted election. I traveled during the period and I was a transit when I voted. I just used my phone to vote. And every other lawyer that participated voted, and you could see on your phone the screen, the way the results were coming in. Everybody saw everything and there was no contest. But what we have in Nigeria is a situation whereby, at the end of the day, people will be making insinuations that there may have been manipulations, and it has turned out that it is the judges through election petitions that finally decide who govern Nigerians, thereby disenfranchising Nigerians who are the ones that donate power, because power belongs to the masses. So it is incumbent on this new Inec chairman to ensure that everything that has to do with election in terms of technology is done without any hitch. And again, Nigerians, by virtue of being Nigerians, they have the right to vote and be voted for, irrespective of where they reside.
Right.
So Nigerians in diaspora must be allowed to participate in elections. And of course, if you look at other countries of the world, recently, Lebanon conducted their election. And some Lebanese citizens in Nigeria participated in that election. When America conducted an election, Americans that were living outside the confines of America participated. Why would the case of Nigeria be different?
All right. So,
and over and above that, the very heart and crux of the matter is to have an electoral system that guarantees free, credible, transparent, and fair election.
all right. So you made a number of recommendations to the new Inec chairman to deploy technology and also ensure that even the diasporans can have access to vote in our elections, and to also ensure that the election is free, credible, and transparent.
Yes.
So, Baba, so thank you.
Yes, I just want to say something before we round up this.
As you are saying
discussion.
that, what would you expect from the new INEC chairman? That's the follow-up question. So you could say what you said then.
Yes, I think my expectations from the INEC chairman is almost in line with some of the suggestions that my good brother has said, but much above that, I'm a bit skeptical about the capacity of this country or the INEC to conduct any free and fair election.
Why is that?
The way Nigeria is
why
now.
is that? So?
I don't even agree with the problem, the issue of diaspora voting.
I don't know Nigeria.
Because diaspora voting is ordinarily good. Okay, but if we cannot manage elections that are conducted in Nigeria with ballot papers, how do you ensure the credibility of the elections in various parts of the world where Nigerians are residing?
The answer is clear.
Just wait.
Biometrics.
Let me finish.
When we use biometrics, we are talking about when we use biometrics in voting, it makes it impossible for people to do multiple voting.
Can you allow me to make?
Go ahead.
I think we have talked about biometric here. We all agree that that's the way to go.
Exactly.
But the problem we have in Nigeria of today is that if you want the body language of the government, they are not interested in electoral reform. And so long as long as we keep using ballot papers all over the country, putting up polling booths everywhere, including the front house of politicians and traditional rulers, and people are voting from there as designated by INEC, we cannot get it right. As long as we are recruiting people who are party members of political parties in some states, we cannot get it right. Don't let us deceive ourselves. There is a need to overhaul even the process itself, both legally and strategically and logistically, so that we can de-emphasize this element of ballot newspaper voting. We have to do something to eliminate it. Until we do that, if we are going to be talking about moving sensitive material, when even the CBN is not secure. The other time we had that over 260 billion was removed from the CBN, and nobody could account for it. So we are just deceiving ourselves. If we are talking about security, we are talking about movement of ballot papers, INEC designated posts, the people voting with electronics, without a proper biometric system that will pick out fraudulent voting, double voting, that people can easily, with ease of reference, go to a place or vote on the system, and nationally the server will pick it. We are just deceiving ourselves as a nation, because we keep having this same human factor that we are talking about. So, and it is beyond the Inec chairman. Even if the Inec chairman wants to do the right thing, if the process is not in order.
We're saying the same thing.
If the process is not in order.
What do you mean by the process not being in order?
The electoral system we have now, the procedure for election is flawed.
How?
We have just talked about this. The issue, for instance, where people have to use ballot papers, where people have to be accredited for hours before they can vote, where materials have to be moved physically to places, and the security of those materials, and then the movement of ballot boxes from place to place.
Let me just.
All of these are very crude and
let me just come
way of conducting election.
Let me just come in a bit. What Nigerians are asking for, of course, we understand that there are a lot of challenges in our electoral system, but the minimum that Nigerians are asking, like those that even voted, let their vote be counted.
It cannot count because of the way they are conducting the election.
No, you said that
Nigerian politicians are smart.
the accreditation has been okay. If you oppose the recent election, you will discover with the biometric system,
We have never had biometric. They have always have electronic.
No, they are even
transmission. Electronic transmission. That's the best we have had.
No, we're not talking about transmission. There has always been biometric accreditation. That's if you voted in the last election, you have to be accredited biometric through your biometrics. That has not been an issue. The issue has always been the recording of the numbers and they are scored, because
the results,
the process of biometrics, yes, it's collation that the results has not been voting.
It's not even the voting has its own problem.
Well,
let me mention.
Let the vote count. Let the one that voted count.
It cannot count, because if you have to physically manage ballot papers, if you have to physically move ballot papers from point to point, what you will have is manipulation in the process. Now, before you
move that ballot paper out, it has been counted at the polling unit. The police have taken their own sheet. All the agents have taken their own record of the number of votes. It's at the collection center where these numbers are taken. Like the issue.
Now, you see, this thing is not something that is rocket science. It's something that is practical. And every Nigerian is interested in ensuring that we have credible election in this nation. What is the way forward? Deployment of technology, that is number one. Two, at every polling unit where election is conducted, where the papers, if we are still using papers for now, when the papers are counted, to the glare of every Nigerian, let the result be declared there and put on the screen. You don't need to say until you get to collection center. By the time all the results in all the centers, all the pre-centers, units, all over the federation, the political party agents are there, law enforcement agents are there, and the results are declared there.
You're talking about transmission. The results are usually the new electoral act says that the result must be announced at the polling unit. Yes. I was at the last election.
Yes.
The results were announced at the polling unit.
Yes.
We saw video LP21 that made people were counted. People were there.
All those are optics.
After that, what they take to the collection centers, and that's what they're completely different. People claim that what was declared at different elections from the same body is different from what they at the collection center. Which one use one? Why are different results? A collection center have different figures at the end of the day.
Which one do you authenticate? How do you authenticate it?
And in a few instances where even some commissioner refused to sign,
they even accept some of the results.
Purported the result because they claim that was not what they counted. So we need to eliminate these discrepancies.
So how do we do that?
Yes, by deploying technology.
No, but the technology,
we are not deploying.
I had glitch in the last.
Even the IRF, their extreme, even the technology we call IRE. What does it consist of? Somebody who accredits. What is the accreditation for? The accreditation is whether his name is on the ballot or the register, not for voting. The voting, after you are accredited, they find that you are on the register. Then they give you ballot paper later to go and vote.
Exactly.
Okay, but there is nothing that shows that can pick out your vote. If you vote twice or in different places.
Now, if you vote twice, the electoral act have said that once there is an overvote,
how do you know?
You will know.
How?
Because if the accreditation says if overvoting, if the accreditation 90 people are accredited and they have 120 people and the
make it easier. And when the people to print about 100 ballot papers, an individual to print about 100 ballot papers, how do you pick it out? Now, when I say how do you pick it out?
Yes.
The world is dynamic. Nigeria can deploy better technology in elections. Today we can have AI assisted electoral process.
But human beings are going to manage that process. And
I agree. But when we have a process where with the use of technology, if an individual votes more than once, the system will pick it up. We will not have stories where in previous elections to claim that some people were in a particular house and the individual was just printing, and after the series of filling the box, they will now go and join it and count. We need a system whereby once an individual has voted, the system will not accept that vote from him
in any part of the country.
That is the way to go.
And the name of that individual is
and it will show
the address, all these details.
Because the fingerprint of all Nigerians are different.
Yes.
There's no person in the whole world that has the same fingerprint as myself or yourself or himself. Why are we deceiving ourselves? Why do we keep making things difficult for Nigerians? Because some few individuals want to manipulate the system.
That's it.
And the problem is that the masses, out of apathy, out of disenchantment, have left the individual to dictate and determine the fate of the whole nation. A nation of almost 180 million people. Few individuals determine once they manipulate the system.
Is it not a shame?
And if you see the amount of money that is voted for elections
every year,
the one amount of money. Another thing that this man need to address is the issue of having an election conducted in one day. Instead of staggering presidential election and other elections, apart from season elections, let all the elections be done in one day. The presidents, the governors, everything, as we used to have it in the past. It will reduce costs. It will also ensure that the issue of manipulation is minimized. Because you see that by the time one set of election is done, then there's the parties will now assess themselves. In the areas that have not done well, they will make sure that no matter what happens, they must do better or win, no matter the cost. Right. It's not good for Nigeria. It's not good for the electoral system. Right. So we need to address these issues. Right. And the way to go is to deploy technology that will ensure that
you're voting your top print,
the ballot papers that themselves are the ballot papers.
Don't need ballot papers. We don't need no
even we can.
Cannot get to. So how you
recall that during the last election of MPA
contributions,
we did not use ballot papers.
MPA is just a small body. It comprises of how many lawyers? What about it? What of America across the river?
Is America
Nigeria bigger than USSR?
Is America a smaller body than
America is a first world country.
Nigeria is a different country. What makes it different?
The world is turned to a global.
Is it not the same?
Technology is available everywhere.
India organizes one of the
Kenya. Look at an African country in the world. Kenya organizes election. South Africa organizes election. These countries have elections that are transparent. free and fair.
So it's not an excuse.
Nigeria in terms
It's not, no, they are not. It's not an excuse.
Nigeria
It's not an
is the
excuse.
giant of Africa.
It's not an excuse of Africa.
Population is not an excuse.
Nigeria must rise up. Our democracy is giving the entire world.
Because we don't even know the number of people who constitute Nigeria.
No, is it not a shame, for instance, that a president of Nigeria wins election just by 8 million votes? Is it not a shame? Where you have 280 million Nigerians.
Estimated
By estimate. Even if they are 200 million, even if they are 220 million, a president of a country wins election with 8 million, and he counts himself as if the entire country has voted for him. So these are, and we don't see the danger we are doing to democracy.
You see, before, it used to be that to your tents, O Israel, people go and they do your thing your own way. But today, every nation in the world is interested in ensuring that democratic principles, rule of law, prevail in other nations. That is why when a nation wants to conduct an election, other international community will send observers to go and monitor what is going on there. And that of Nigeria has always been.
Let's take the final word on this, because all of this has to do with confidence and the zeal to even conduct a free and fair election from the political will. Yeah, the political, of course. And the question with Nigeria, shouldn't somebody who is, of course, you are lawyers, and lawyers are expected, to show a level of integrity in all their dealing. And thank God that one of you have been appointed as the new Inec chairman. Yes. Should we be expecting something different, being the fact that he is a lawyer? He understands the fact, the implication of going against the law, even though it is in favor of your appointer.
That is why it is important that the law be amended.
Wouldn't you? No, even as it is now, of course, we might not have amendments. Our number election will be holding very soon, so we might not have amendment. Yes. But with the law, with what we have on ground, do you have confidence that being a lawyer, your colleague, a respected and a professor, that he would dispense it?
Personally, I believe that since the new Inec chairman is a lawyer, is a professor, is a senior advocate of Nigeria, that means he has distinguished himself in the profession. And with his appointment,
and also have sworn to protect the rule of law.
Yes, with his appointment, there are great expectations from the legal profession and from entire Nigerians and all over the world. Right. And I believe that he knows the expectations of Nigerians, that there must be a radical departure from what we have always been seen in the past.
Yes.
Because this is the time that a renowned lawyer is known to steer the ship of the nation.
So you are confident?
And I'm confident,
yes,
that he will do something. He will go ahead and ensure that at the end of the day, Nigerians will say yes. Right. Because this man is a lawyer. Because of course, we have seen a great change.
Of course. And I'm sure that the profession encourages that you show yourself in character and in learning. And of course, being a senior advocate, we shouldn't be expecting anything now, or you don't agree.
Yeah, well, yes, it is supposed to be so, but the Nigerian context always gives the X factor. The X factor being that he may intend to do something. He may intend to do something that will be beneficial to the nation, but the way these politicians behave and the way they go about their own thing, the system may make it impossible, almost impossible for him. Right. Almost impossible for him to do anything.
All right. So that's why. Let us just quickly take a close look, because we're almost out of time. The issue of the tinted glass permit, because some people have argued that is a bridge.
You think we can do that in 5 minutes?
Yeah, just
yeah. Okay. Well, on this one, the tinted glass
is it a breach of people's fundamental rights to free from harassment?
Well, some people have contended that is a violation of fundamental rights of Nigerians. But you see, to start with, the Motor Vehicle Tinted Glass Prohibition Act of 1991 was made by the military rulers at a time when military coup was the in thing. And the idea, the philosophy behind it was to ensure that everyone in tinted glass is known so that coup plotters can easily be identified, featured, and dealt with accordingly. The question now is, do we need that law in the present day Nigeria? And to answer that question, we need to look at, well, of course, we know that MP as a body is going to court, the Federal High Court in Abuja, to contend that that law is not reasonably justifiable in a democratic society, that's unconstitutional, is illegal, and all that. Before MP proceeded to court, legal practitioner John Martins in Wari went to court, and the judge looked at the matter and made an order that the status quo be maintained. All right. And of course, we know from the Supreme Court decision, Ojukwu, Governor of Lagos State, that especially what the Honorable Justice to put say that when the status quo is ordered to be maintained, it is status quo antebellum. That is the state of things before hostilities. Which means that once the court say let status quo be maintained, then all the parties are to remain calm, not to do anything until the matter has been finally decided. And of course, we also recall the principle of Ferguson and Daniels. Right. Then when a party is aware of a pending matter,
let's take let me quickly say just two things I want to say about it. The first one is, if the police feel that there is need to prohibit it, why are they putting a levy for the permit? That's the first thing. That's number one. Number two, do they have the legal right to impose financial tax or levy on anybody whose car is using a tinted glass? On both grounds, the police has no right whatsoever to do what they are doing. So the court and of course the court have decided and of course the sub-judice already. So you can't be talking about the legality or illegality of it.
There's also a recent judgment to the effect that the Nigerian police force is not a revenue agency nation.
Money
and to that extent, using the permit as a way to impose collecting money from Nigerians is unconstitutional. But that is what the court will decide on. But you see, another thing is, I believe that the Nigerian police should be more focused on the security challenges in the nation.
They are saying that is part of their security measures.
The bandits don't go with tinted glasses.
If police is saying that they want to know those that use tinted glasses, and these tinted glasses are for medical reasons, and of course people who use tinted glasses for medical reasons, those will be separated. Then others, the issue will not be issue of making money. The issue is logistics on how to ensure a safer Nigeria. Because a lot of Nigerians have called that for emergency to be declared in the issue of security. And police is busy looking for ways to make Nigerians not burden about the level of insecurity in this nation. If the issue is insecurity, the kidnappers in the forest, do they use tinted glasses?
They don't.
The bandits,
they don't.
That do they use tinted glasses? I don't think so. I believe the Constitution is section 214, that says the Nigerian police and the duties as well as the Nigerian Police Act 2020 are clearly defined the duties of the Nigerian police.
You won't find that function.
And it is not people who are making money for the nation.
Alright.
Just like some other agencies that are making money for the nation that are not supposed to be making money for the nation.
Alright. So this is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Democracy and the Rule of Law. Catch us same time next week as we look at more trending stories. Stay tuned. We'll meet again next week.